Hello and welcome to Things Explained. This is the third video in my series about communication. In this part, I want to teach you the principles of communication to help you achieve healthy relationships as well as better and more productive interactions with the people around you. Make sure you stick around to get better social skills instantly. So, let's begin. Paul Watzlawick, an Australian-American psychologist, therapist, philosopher, and communication theorist, developed 5 axioms of communication. The first axiom says, one cannot not communicate, which means that every behavior we display is some form of communication. A lot of communication actually happens unconscious. But as soon as people perceive each other, they start communicating, as every behavior or absence of action can be interpreted as having some meaning. So for example, think about what message you send by being silent and looking away from a friend. The second axiom says that every act of communication can be divided in a content and a relationship aspect such that the latter classifies the former and is therefore a form of meta-communication. As you learned in my last video, a secondary form of communication about how information is meant to be interpreted. For example, saying the exact same sentence like, "Did you gain a little weight, buddy?" to a close friend is very different than saying it, for example, to your boss or your wife. Questioning yourself if the words you choose are proper for the context and the people present may help here. The next axiom talks about the punctuation in communication. Watzlawick says that communication is always punctuated and that the nature of a relationship is dependent on the punctuation of the partner's communication procedures. In other words, Watzlawick suggested that how good or how bad a relationship is depends on how the involved parties decipher each other's intentions, actions, or way of communicating. In this context, punctuation refers to the process of organizing groups of messages into meanings. All parties involved structure the communication flow differently and therefore interpret their own behavior during communicating as merely a reaction on the other's behavior. For example, let's say that you have a conversation with a colleague. The conversation makes you upset, but you don't tell them how you feel. The next time that you see this colleague, you may act awkwardly or differently around them. Your colleague might then realize that you are upset about something. You've punctuated your feelings with your behavior. However, your colleague might think that you have recently become upset. They might feel confused or insecure because for all they know, you are upset for an unknown reason. This in turn keeps you feeling upset. In this example, the interaction creates a cyclic cause and effect loop because there's no true dialogue that allows you and your colleague to see what is really happening. By understanding this axiom, you can break this conversation loop. For example, "Hey John, when we talked the other day, I didn't like what you told me and I got upset. That's why I felt awkward around you." Your colleague, "Really? I didn't notice that. What exactly made you upset?" This simple dialogue would act as a kind of meta-communication to break the endless loop. Axiom 4. Communication involves digital and analog modalities. The digital mode is what the person says or what their words actually mean. So as I explained in part 1, the verbal aspect of communication. While the analog mode has to do with how something is said, so the paraverbal aspect, and the nonverbal cues that go along with it. We can sometimes send 2 opposing messages at once. This may cause misunderstandings and conflict. When a person sends a message with conflicting verbal, paraverbal, and nonverbal informations, the nonverbal tends to be believed. The trick here is to be consistent and to avoid things like sarcasm in serious interactions. If you are confident about something, make sure you back up your words with the tone, pitch, and pacing of your voice, as well as with your body language. For example, imagine your grandma gives you a present for your birthday. There's a big difference between saying, "Oh wow, thank you grandma," with a sarcastic undertone and a neutral facial expression, and saying, "Oh wow, thank you grandma," enthusiastically while smiling and maybe hugging her. And the last axiom. Communication can be symmetrical or complementary, depending on whether the relationship of the partners is based on differences or parity. A symmetric relationship is one in which everyone behaves as equals from a power perspective. If a symmetrical relationship gets out of hand, both parties can end up attacking each other in a power struggle. A complementary relationship, on the other hand, is one of unequal power, such as parent-child or boss-employee. If a complementary relationship gets out of hand, the disparity will increase over time. The powerful may become more tyrannical, while the submissive will be even more limited in their opportunities to engage. Knowing and being aware of these 5 axioms can already be a big step in the direction of successful communication. But now, let's dive deeper into the mistakes you can make with these 5 axioms and how you can avoid them. So, being aware that everything we do sends signals and being open for communication, accepting and engaging in it is a key for success with axiom 1. Mistakes that can occur here could be ignoring, rejecting, or ending the conversation unilaterally and invalidating the message of the person you're communicating with. Having success with axiom 2. Being on the same page about the relationship aspect and content aspect while you're communicating. When a problem in a relationship influences the content level, or when conflicts on the content level influence a relationship, conflicts arise that will quickly sour the relationship further. This, as well as leaving out the relationship aspect completely while only concentrating on the content and the other way around, often lead to a bad outcome. Having success with axiom 3 goes hand in hand with understanding the communication cycle and having the same interpunctuation. Wrongly applying axiom 3 can lead to conflicts caused by different expectations of cause and reaction, or when one's own behavior is being used as an excuse for the behavior of the other person. So, for example, when you say something like, "Well, I only didn't wish you a good morning because yesterday you didn't kiss me goodnight," to your partner. Clear verbal and nonverbal messaging, meaning matching the verbal and nonverbal modalities and finding the balance between the two, is how you're most likely gonna have success with axiom 4. Ambiguity of the modalities or predominance of one of them, mismatches between them, and the lack of awareness of the two modalities often lead to mixed signaling and imprecise communication. Successfully communicating with the help of axiom 5. Find the balance between symmetrical and complementary communication and avoid symmetrical escalation. This happens when everyone wants to be a little more equal than the other. For example, you buy your partner flowers and they feel like they have to buy you an even bigger present in return, because they can't reciprocate adequately and it keeps ramping up. Rigid complementary, when disparity in the power difference between the communicating parties gets too big, is also something dangerous you should look out for. So, those were the 5 axioms by Watzlawick. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button and to activate the notification bell so you'll never miss a new interesting video. If you enjoyed the video and learned something new, let me know by giving it a thumbs up. And of course, feel free to leave a comment as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll be there again next time.